Okay, Reddit, just rip into me. I know I screwed up. I know I'm the asshole. But I need anyone, to tell me if this is really it. If a single, stupid, 5-second mistake is enough to detonate a 4-year relationship. Because right now, I'm sitting in the middle of our living room, and it feels like half of it has been surgically removed. Jordan's side of the bookshelf is empty, leaving a dusty void. His ridiculous, oversized gaming chair is gone. The coffee mug I got him from that trip to Seattle, the one with the cartoon Sasquatch, isn't in the cupboard. He even took the half-empty bottle of his favorite hot sauce from the fridge. It's the silence that's killing me. A silence so loud it's making my ears ring. He was my rock. Jordan is a software engineer, predictable, quiet, and profoundly kind. The kind of guy who remembers how I take my coffee after only being told once, who'd quietly put a blanket over me when I fell asleep on the couch. My new friends, used to joke that he was a bit boring. A golden retriever boyfriend, they'd call him. I used to laugh along, but secretly I loved that about him. He was my safe harbor in a world that always felt too loud and chaotic. And I took that safe harbor and blew it up with a fucking torpedo. For what? For a few cheap laughs from people who probably don't even remember my name today. It all started about 6 months ago when I got promoted at work and fell in with a new crowd. They weren't like my old friends, the ones Jordan and I shared who were happy with a board game night and takeout. This group was electric. They were led, unofficially, by a woman named Sasha. Sasha is one of those people who seems to glitter. She's a micro-influencer with a razor-sharp wit and a tongue that could slice glass. Her whole brand is built on being brutally honest and hilariously cynical. Being in her orbit felt like being near a bonfire on a cold night. You were drawn to the warmth and the light, even if you risked getting burned. Their currency was banter. Not the gentle, teasing kind Jordan and I had, but a competitive blood sport of roasting. The goal was to be the cleverest, the most ruthless, the one who could deliver the most devastatingly funny put-down. At my first dinner with them, I watched in a state of shock as Sasha eviscerated another woman's new haircut, comparing it to a poodle that had lost a fight with a lawnmower. The table erupted in laughter, including the woman with the haircut, who was laughing the loudest, as if to prove she could take it. I realized then that the only thing worse than being the target of the joke was being the person who couldn't handle it. To be accepted, you had to participate. You had to prove you were one of them, that you were cool, detached, and that nothing was sacred. So I started playing the game. My first few attempts were clumsy, but then I made a sharp joke about our boss and got a real, genuine laugh from Sasha. That sound was like a drug. It was validation. It made me feel seen, interesting, and for the first time in a long time, not just nice. And Jordan became my easiest material. His quiet hobbies, his aversion to big parties, his earnest love for fantasy novels, it all became fodder for my stand-up routine. Oh, Jordan's at home tonight, probably debating the ethics of goblin mining rights with someone on a forum, I'd say, rolling my eyes, and they would howl. Each laugh chipped away a little piece of my respect for him, replacing it with a desperate need for their approval. He came to a few of their gatherings, and it was excruciating. He'd stand awkwardly in the corner, nursing a beer, offering polite smiles while the insults flew. I remember one night, one of Sasha's friends tried to roast him. "So, you're a coder, right? That means you just stare at weird letters on a black screen all day." Jordan, bless his literal heart, just blinked and said, "Well, it's a bit more complex than that. I'm mostly working with Python to streamline back-end data processing for." The guy's eyes glazed over, and he just walked away. I felt a hot flush of second-hand embarrassment. Why couldn't he just play along? In the car on the way home, he was quiet. Finally, he asked, "Is that what you guys think is fun? Just making each other feel small?" "You're too sensitive, babe," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "It's just jokes." He didn't argue. He just turned to look out the window and said, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, "Jokes aren't supposed to be weapons, Delaney." Then he said nothing for the rest of the ride. The turning point was a brunch a few weeks ago. Sasha was telling a story about her ex, a hilarious but cruel anecdote that had the whole table in stitches. She caught my eye and said, with a pitying little smile, "You're lucky, Delaney. Jordan's so sweet. He's like a little harmless pet you get to keep in your apartment." The table chuckled. Harmless pet. A little thing I owned, not my partner, not my equal, just a safe, boring accessory. In that moment, her words didn't just sting, they defined me. I was the owner of the harmless pet, and I felt a desperate, ugly urge to prove her wrong, to show them all that my life wasn't boring, that I wasn't boring, that I could be just as savage as any of them. That ugly urge found its moment last Saturday. Sasha was hosting a party at her apartment, one of her usual boozy, loud affairs. The roasting game was in full swing, more vicious than ever. Someone had just finished a brutal takedown of her own boyfriend's failed attempt at a startup, complete with screenshots of his overly optimistic business plan. The group was roaring. Then, Sasha turned her glittering eyes to me. "Your turn, Delaney. Give us something good. Surely your little golden retriever has done something embarrassing." My mind went blank. My heart hammered against my ribs. All eyes were on me, expectant and predatory. I could feel their collective anticipation, this hungry need for entertainment at someone else's expense. I scrolled frantically through my mental catalog of Jordanisms, but everything seemed too tame, too sweet. Him crying at the end of a Pixar movie. Them laughing would feel like sacrilege. The time he tried to bake bread and it came out like a brick, too wholesome. I needed something with teeth, something that would make them gasp and then laugh. And then, like a demon whispering in my ear, the image popped into my head. The photo, it was from his first year of college. He had shown it to me one night, about a year into our relationship. We were in bed, sharing secrets in the dark, a ritual of vulnerability that had bonded us. He'd confessed how deeply insecure he'd been about his weight growing up, a wound he'd carried silently for years. He told me stories of being bullied, of eating lunch alone in the library, of a crushing loneliness that had defined his teenage years. He described it as feeling invisible and monstrous at the same time. Then he'd pulled out his phone and showed me the proof, the ghost of the boy he used to be. The boy in the photo was almost unrecognizable. He was at least 60 pounds heavier, with a bad haircut and an ill-fitting polo shirt that seemed to shrink away from his frame. But the worst part, the part that had made my own heart ache when I first saw it, was his expression. It was a look of profound, soul-deep misery, a desperate attempt at a smile for a picture he clearly didn't want to be in. His eyes were haunted, pleading. "This was me before I found running," he had whispered, his voice thick with old shame. "I've never shown this to anyone else. Not even my parents know I still have it. I keep it to remind myself I never want to be that person again." It wasn't just a picture. It was a testament to his pain and his triumph over it. It was a sacred trust, a piece of his wounded soul that he had placed in my hands for safekeeping. In Sasha's living room, with the pressure mounting, that sacred trust felt like a weapon, a perfect, devastating weapon. My fingers felt cold and clumsy as I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking slightly. My heart was pounding, a frantic voice in the back of my head screaming, "Don't do it, Delaney, this is the red line," but the desire to impress, to be one of them, was a roar that drowned it out. I found the photo in a hidden folder I'd named Misk. I uploaded it to our group chat, a chat that included about 15 people, Jordan included, who was at that very moment across the room getting me a drink. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I needed the perfect caption, something witty, detached, and cruel. Guess what my little pet looked like before he evolved? I hit send. The blue arrow swooshed and the act was done. It was irreversible. For a split second, there was silence as phones buzzed in unison. Then, the first snicker from across the room. It grew into a wave of laughter, louder and more gratifying than any I had earned before. People were pulling up the picture on their phones, howling, passing them around. "No fucking way," someone yelled. "He looks like a baby whale." Another person zoomed in on his face and cackled. Sasha gave me a slow, impressed grin over the rim of her wine glass, a silent acknowledgement that I had finally, truly joined the club. I felt a dizzying, sickening rush of victory. I had done it. I was one of them. I was so caught up in my performance, so high on their validation, that I almost forgot Jordan was standing right there. The sound of Jordan's phone buzzing was barely audible over the laughter, but I heard it. I saw him fish it out of his pocket, a slight frown of confusion on his face. He was walking back towards me, a fresh gin and tonic in his hand, my favorite. He glanced down at the screen, probably expecting a work email or a notification from his fantasy football league. And then I watched it happen. It was like watching a film in slow motion. His steps faltered. The casual smile on his face didn't just disappear, it was erased. All the color drained from his cheeks, leaving his skin a pale, waxy gray. His eyes, the warm brown eyes that I loved, widened in disbelief before they flickered with something I had never, ever seen him direct at me. A deep, hollowed-out shock. He wasn't looking at me. He was just staring at the screen, at that ghost from his past I had just paraded in front of everyone. The laughter in the room was still ringing out, but it sounded distant now, like it was coming from another world. My world had shrunk to the space between me and him. I saw his thumb move, scrolling up, probably seeing my name, my caption. His jaw tightened. He looked up, his eyes finally scanning the room, seeing the laughing faces, the phones pointed in his direction. He understood instantly. He didn't yell, he didn't cause a scene, he didn't even look at me. That was the worst part. It was as if I had ceased to exist. He just turned, walked over to the nearest table, and carefully placed my drink down. Then he walked to the front door, grabbed his jacket, and said to Sasha, his voice eerily calm, "I have to go." And then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, and the finality of that sound sobered me up instantly. The laughter in the room died down, replaced by an awkward silence. Sasha just shrugged. "Well, I guess he can't take a joke," she said, and a few people tittered nervously. For the rest of the night, I pretended everything was fine. I laughed, I drank, I played the part of the cool, edgy girlfriend. But inside, a cold dread was spreading through my veins. When I finally stumbled home around 2 a.m., the apartment was dark, but a single lamp was on in the living room. Jordan was there. He had 2 large suitcases open on the floor and was methodically taking his clothes out of the closet and folding them. He moved with a quiet, detached efficiency that terrified me. "Jordan, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. He didn't stop folding. He just placed a stack of t-shirts into the suitcase and said, his back still to me, "I thought my past was safe with you, Delaney. It was a joke. A stupid, stupid joke. I'm so sorry." I started to cry, the drunken bravado from the party crumbling into pathetic sobs. He finally turned to look at me, and his face was a mask of calm disappointment. There was no anger, just a profound, devastating weariness. "No," he said, his voice flat. "A joke is when both people are laughing. This was just cruelty. And you enjoyed it." The next morning, I woke up to the sound of a zipper. He was closing the second suitcase. All his toiletries were gone from the bathroom. His laptop wasn't on his desk. He had stripped his side of our life away while I slept. I begged, I pleaded, I promised I would change. He just shook his head, picked up his bags, and walked to the door. "Where are you going?" I cried. He paused at the door, but he didn't turn around. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I know I can't stay here." Then he left. I checked my phone. He had already blocked me. On everything. The first 24 hours were a blur of panicked denial. I kept calling his phone, a futile exercise that went straight to a cold, automated voicemail. I sent a barrage of texts that vanished into the digital ether, marked only by that single, damning, delivered status that never turned to read. I was convinced he just needed to cool off. He'd be back, he had to come back. He'd forgotten his favorite hoodie, the worn-out one from his college days. He wouldn't just leave that behind. By day 2, the panic began to curdle into a desperate need for an ally. My first and only thought was Sasha. I called her, my voice a pathetic wreck, explaining through sobs that Jordan had actually left. I expected sympathy, maybe an offer to come over with a bottle of wine and trash him with me. Instead, her response was lukewarm. "Oh, wow. That's intense," she said, her voice laced with an uncomfortable distance. "Look, Delaney, I feel for you, but it sounds like you guys have some stuff to work out. It's probably best if we don't get in the middle of it." The "we" was a slap in the face. The club I had paid such a high price to enter was closing its doors to me. The very people I had performed for were now treating me like collateral damage they were eager to avoid. The group chat, once a constant stream of notifications, went quiet whenever I tried to say something. My edgy performance had made me a liability. By the end of the week, I was a ghost in my own life. The silence in the apartment was a physical presence, pressing in on me. Every empty space screamed his absence. I tried to clean, to rearrange the furniture, to erase the ghost of him, but it was impossible. His imprint was everywhere. That's when I found the folder. I was clearing out the drawer of the nightstand on his side of the bed, a task I'd been avoiding. Tucked underneath a stack of old paperbacks, there was a simple manila folder labeled Autumn. My heart sank. Last year, we talked about taking a real vacation, a road trip through New England to see the fall colors. It was one of those someday plans. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a meticulously planned itinerary. He had printed out maps, lists of scenic drives, reservations for quaint bed and breakfasts he must have known I would love. He'd even bookmarked a specific apple orchard because he knew how much I loved apple cider donuts. It was all there, a secret blueprint for a future I had just incinerated. Tucked in the back of the folder, a small printout from a jewelry website fell out. It was a ring. A simple, elegant sapphire ring, the exact one I had pointed out in a shop window months ago and then completely forgotten about. He had saved the picture. He was planning to propose. The piece of paper fluttered from my numb fingers. I slid down to the floor, the folder's contents scattered around me like the wreckage of a life that was no longer mine. The sound that came out of my mouth was a raw, animal wail of a grief so profound, it felt like it was tearing me apart from the inside out. He hadn't just left me. I had forced him to abandon a future he was lovingly, secretly building for us both. And now, here I am. It's been 3 weeks. The hoodie is still here, hanging on the back of a chair, smelling faintly of him. It's my own personal crucifix. I've lost my partner, and the friends I did it all for want nothing to do with me. I'm a pariah in my own life. My only window into his world, my only source of self-torture, is through the Instagram profile of a mutual acquaintance. A guy named Owen from Jordan's old college friend group. Owen's profile is public. I check it probably 30 times a day. My thumb has developed a muscle memory for the search bar and his name. It's a sickness. Last night, Owen posted a new photo. It was a group shot from a backyard barbecue. There, in the middle of the frame, was Jordan. He was holding a beer, smiling, a genuine, relaxed smile that reached his eyes. The kind of smile I haven't seen on his face in months, not since I started trying to be someone else. He's a little thinner, the stress has clearly taken its toll, but he looks free. He's surrounded by people who have known him for a decade. People who probably know all about the boy in the photograph and love him not in spite of it, but because of the man he fought to become. I spent at least an hour just staring at it. I zoomed in on his face, on the faces of his friends laughing around him. I zoomed in on the background, looking for clues for anything. It's a special kind of hell, watching the person you love start to heal from the wound you inflicted. Every happy photo he appears in is another nail in the coffin of the hope I can't seem to kill. He's rebuilding his life, and I'm stuck here, in the rubble of the one I destroyed, endlessly refreshing a screen, hoping for another glimpse of a world I'm no longer a part of.